I was 7 months pregnant, hauling heavy grocery bags up 3 flights of stairs in the middle of a heat wave, while my husband, Tyler, lounged on the couch, glued to his video game. The moment I dropped the last set of bags on the kitchen floor, dripping with sweat and gasping for air, he glanced at me and said with a straight face, "You're getting disgusting to look at. You'll better lose that weight fast after the baby, or I'll find someone who actually takes care of herself." And just like that, I stopped pretending everything was okay. My name is Emily. I'm 29, work remotely as a graphic designer, and I've been married to Tyler for 3 years. We met through a community theater group. I was working on costumes, and he was the charming lead with a guitar and a smile that made everyone lean in. I thought I hit the jackpot. Funny, creative, full of dreams. But dreams don't pay bills, and charisma doesn't raise children. Things started unraveling when I got pregnant. It wasn't planned, but after the shock wore off, I was excited. Tyler said all the right things, how he'd make a great team, how he'd support me, but his actions told a different story. He started gaming more, helping less. He stopped going to his part-time gigs and said he needed to focus on his music. Meanwhile, I was throwing up every day for 3 months straight, then dealing with anemia and non-stop back pain. Today, after I got off work, I stopped by Trader Joe's. My car was packed with groceries. We live in a 3rd-floor walk-up with no elevator. I asked Tyler to help carry the bags, but he waved me off, saying he was in the middle of something important. So, I went up and down those stairs 6 times, each trip harder than the last. My ankles were swollen, my lower back was screaming, and my fingers were tingling from holding the bags too tightly. And after all that, he insulted me with his headset on. While his gaming buddies listened and laughed, he wanted them to hear. That was the part that broke me. But I didn't cry in front of him. I didn't yell. I walked over, kissed him on the forehead, and told him I was going to take a shower. His confused expression almost made me laugh, if I hadn't been dying inside. In the shower, I let the hot water drown out the sound of my sobs, but I wasn't just crying out of sadness. I was angry, furious, and clear-headed for the first time in a long while. That comment, that one moment in the kitchen, pulled the curtain back. It wasn't the first time he'd said something cruel, but it was the first time I let myself fully hear it. And I realized, this is who he really is. This is not the kind of home I want to raise my daughter in. After the shower, I slipped into my most comfortable maternity dress, grabbed my go bag, already packed just in case, my laptop, all my important documents, and I told Tyler I needed to get some air. He barely looked up from his controller. I walked out that door, climbed into my car, and didn't stop driving until I reached a small motel 20 minutes away. I called my sister, Anne, who lives about an hour out. She's driving in tomorrow to help me figure out my next steps. Tyler's only text so far? "Where's the leftover chicken from last night?" Not, "Where are you?" Not, "Are you okay?" Just, "Where's the food?" I'm terrified. I'm exhausted. But I know this much. I'm not going back. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. I deserve better. And more importantly, my daughter does too. The next morning, Anne showed up at the motel with 2 large coffees, a bag of breakfast sandwiches, and that look only big sisters have when they're ready to help clean up your life. We sat on the edge of the bed, my belly taking up half the space between us, and I finally let myself say it out loud. I need to leave Tyler. For good. And didn't say, "Are you sure?" or "Maybe you're overreacting." She just nodded and said, "Okay, let's make a plan." That moment was a turning point. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was choosing. Choosing to protect myself and my daughter. Choosing peace over chaos. We spent that morning writing out a to-do list. Talk to a lawyer. Gather documents. Figure out a new place to live. Separate finances. It felt overwhelming, but it also felt like control was coming back into my hands. I went back to the apartment that evening, not because I'd changed my mind, but because I needed time to prepare. Anne and I agreed it would be too risky to let Tyler know I was leaving before I was fully ready. When I walked through the door, he looked up from the couch, controller still in hand, and said, "Where have you been? I had to microwave my own dinner." I smiled, a tight, rehearsed smile, and said, "Just needed some space. I'm fine now." He bought it. Of course he did. He always believed his version of me was real, the quiet wife who just needed to calm down. That night, while he snored next to me, I opened my laptop under the covers and started looking up divorce attorneys. I found one with great reviews who specialized in high-conflict separations. I sent an email right there in bed explaining my situation. The reply came in the next morning. They could meet me virtually the next day. Over the next 2 weeks, I played my role. I cooked dinner. I asked him how his game streams were going. I laughed at his dumb jokes. All the while, I was building my escape. My lawyer told me to document everything, so I started a journal. Every time Tyler made a cruel comment, every time he dumped a chore on me, every time he used, "You're just hormonal" to end a conversation, I wrote it down with date and time. I also started secretly recording our interactions on my phone. Nothing dramatic, just conversations that clearly showed his pattern of emotional neglect. My lawyer said it could help if custody ever came into play. Meanwhile, Anne was helping me tour apartments. We found a small 2-bedroom unit about 15 minutes from my work. Ground floor, washer and dryer included, no stairs. Not fancy, but safe. I filled out the application under just my name, using the money from my personal account. Luckily, I'd always kept my paychecks separate. Tyler had no idea how much I had saved. The hardest part was pretending. I'd go to the bathroom just to cry quietly into a towel. I'd stand in the shower letting the water hit my face and tell myself, just a little longer, just until the lease is signed. Just until the weekend he goes out of town. Because I had a plan. Tyler was going to his dad's birthday next Saturday, an overnight trip 2 hours away. That was my window. My lawyer said if I served the papers after I left, it would avoid confrontation, so that's what I was going to do. I was scared, terrified, honestly. I'd never lived alone. I didn't know if I could raise a baby by myself. But every time I put my hand on my belly and felt my daughter kick, I remembered why I had to do this. I wasn't just leaving a bad marriage. I was building a better life. For both of us. The week leading up to Tyler's trip felt like the longest of my life. Every morning I woke up with a pounding heart, wondering if today would be the day he caught on. But Tyler, in true fashion, was as oblivious as ever. He was too wrapped up in his online gaming tournaments and late-night Discord chats to notice the little changes. The boxes disappearing from the closet, the missing documents from the filing cabinet, the carefully selected baby items I had quietly moved to Anne's. He thought I had come back in line. That his little joke about my weight was behind us. That I was just being an emotional pregnant woman who needed to calm down. But what he didn't know was that every time I washed the dishes while he sat on the couch, every load of laundry I folded, every time I smiled when he made some sarcastic comment, I was rehearsing my exit. I'd finalized the lease for the new apartment and scheduled the move for Saturday morning. My sister was coming with her SUV, and Mia, my coworker and close friend, had convinced her fiancé to loan us his pickup truck for the day. I packed everything I could ahead of time and labeled it with colored dots so we could move quickly. I even printed out an itemized list of what was mine, so Tyler couldn't later accuse me of taking anything that wasn't. But the hardest part? Sleeping next to him. At 8 months pregnant, I was already uncomfortable. My back ached constantly. I couldn't find a position that didn't feel like my organs were shifting. But lying in that bed next to someone who saw me as nothing more than a burden, a woman he could insult and dismiss, made my skin crawl. And somehow, in his mind, everything was still normal. One night, while I was rubbing stretch mark lotion on my belly, Tyler walked by and said, "You know, you really should start thinking about how you're gonna bounce back after the baby. No guy wants to be stuck with someone who lets herself go." I didn't even flinch, but just looked up, smiled sweetly, and said, "I've already got a plan." That was the truth. My plan wasn't just about moving. It was about reclaiming myself, reclaiming my peace. Friday night, Tyler packed his overnight bag and kissed me on the cheek before heading out the door. "Don't do anything crazy while I'm gone," he joked. I just smiled and waved. The second his car disappeared from the lot, I called Anne. "He's gone," I said. "Let's do this." Within the hour, Anne was at the apartment with Mia. We moved quickly and quietly. All the important items, baby supplies, my clothes, my personal belongings, and yes, even the crib I had saved up for, went straight into the trucks. We left behind anything shared or too big to justify, like the sofa and dining table. I didn't want to give Tyler any reason to claim I'd stolen from him. By 8 p.m., my new place was half set up. Exhausted but giddy, we sat on the living room floor eating pizza and toasting with sparkling water. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. The next morning, we returned to the old apartment one last time. I scrubbed the kitchen, wiped down the counters, and left everything in order. Then I placed a folder on the dining table. Divorce papers, a detailed note, and a USB drive with screenshots and recordings. At the top of the note, I wrote, "You said you'd find someone better. I just did. Me." And with that, I walked out and locked the door behind me. I didn't sleep at all that first night in my new apartment. Even though I was finally safe in a space that was mine, every creak of the building made me jump. I kept expecting to hear Tyler pounding on the door, demanding answers, calling me names. But it never came. Just silence. Sweet, heavy silence. At 10 a.m. the next morning, my phone started buzzing. Not with calls from Tyler, but from unfamiliar numbers. I ignored them all. Then came an email from Tyler. Subject line, "What the hell?" He'd finally come home. The message was a mess. First, disbelief. "Are you serious right now?" Then blame. "You blindsided me, after everything I've done for you." Then came the guilt trip. "I was just joking. You're too sensitive." And finally, the classic manipulation. "I still love you. Let's fix this." I forwarded the email to my lawyer and muted his address. That same afternoon, Tyler's mom called Anne. They'd always been friendly, and Anne answered out of courtesy. She didn't tell her where I was, just that I was safe and that Tyler's behavior had been abusive. To our surprise, his mother didn't argue. She actually started crying. "I raised him better than this," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." I don't know why, but that broke me more than Tyler's words ever did. In the days that followed, I focused on settling into my new life. My apartment was small. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a little balcony that overlooked a tiny patch of green space, but it felt like a palace. Anne helped me set up the crib in the second bedroom. We hung soft yellow curtains and placed a stuffed elephant in the corner. I even framed the ultrasound photo and put it on the windowsill. I went to my doctor's appointment that Friday. My OB smiled as she placed the Doppler on my belly. "Strong heartbeat," she said. "She's a fighter." I smiled for the first time in what felt like weeks. My daughter was still kicking like crazy, probably wondering why her mom was suddenly so much more relaxed. That weekend, I did something bold, something I hadn't done in years. I went to the beach. Just me and Em. We packed sandwiches, sunscreen, and 2 folding chairs. I wore a maternity swimsuit that hugged every curve of my 8-month belly, and for the first time, I didn't care who saw. We sat by the shore, feet buried in the warm sand, the sound of the waves drowning out the noise of everything I'd left behind. While Anne went to grab us cold drinks, I looked out at the ocean and whispered, "We're going to be okay." I placed a hand on my stomach. She kicked in response. Back at home, I started therapy, virtually once a week. My therapist specializes in emotional abuse during pregnancy, and during our first session, she told me, "You're not overreacting, you're recovering." That sentence felt like a warm blanket. I'd spent so long minimizing everything Tyler did, convincing myself it wasn't that bad. But it was. I finally allowed myself to grieve, not just the relationship, but the version of myself who thought love meant sacrificing until there was nothing left. That woman was gone. In her place was someone new, someone stronger. I wasn't just preparing to become a mother. I was learning how to mother myself too, with compassion, with patience, and with fierce protection. Tyler still hadn't seen the divorce papers, but he would, and when he did, I knew exactly what would happen. He'd rage, he'd beg, he'd blame. But this time, I wouldn't be listening. It's been 10 months since I walked out of that apartment, and tonight, as I rock Lily to sleep in our quiet little home, I realize how far we've come. Lily is 6 months old now, bright-eyed, strong-willed, and absolutely perfect. She has my smile, Tyler's dimpled chin, and a laugh that fills every corner of this apartment with joy. Her favorite thing is when I sing to her while we dance in the kitchen. I twirl, she giggles, and for a moment the world feels soft again. The birth wasn't easy. She came 3 weeks early, 5 days after I moved into the new place. 19 hours of labor, 3 hours of pushing, and when they finally laid her on my chest, I sobbed. Not from pain, but from relief. Relief that we'd made it, that I'd made it. Tyler wasn't there. I didn't tell him I was in labor. My lawyer had advised against it, and my heart agreed. It wasn't safe. Not physically, not emotionally. I emailed him the next day with a photo of Lily, wrapped in a pink blanket, sleeping peacefully. No filter, no caption, no explanation. Just the reality he lost the right to be part of. His response was exactly what I expected. Outrage, guilt-tripping, denial. He accused me of using her to hurt him, said I was keeping his child from him. My lawyer took over all communication. Every message from then on went through her. But you know what I remember most from that week? The silence. No shouting, no passive-aggressive comments, no tension humming in the air like static. Just Lily's breathing, the soft hum of the white noise machine, and the quiet comfort of peace. The divorce was finalized 2 months ago. Tyler fought hard, not out of love, but control. He demanded custody despite having never once asked how the baby was during the pregnancy. He wanted our apartment, even though I had left most of our furniture behind. He even claimed he deserved my car, the one I owned before we ever met. But once my lawyer laid out the recordings, the journal entries, and, most damning, the fraudulent credit card debt he'd taken out in my name, everything changed. Suddenly, Tyler was willing to compromise. I got primary custody. He was granted supervised visitation, 4 hours every other weekend. He hasn't shown up once since the agreement was signed. His mother, however, has. She reached out last month, asking gently if she could meet her granddaughter. I hesitated, but after some thought and boundaries in place, I agreed. She held Lily with tears in her eyes, whispering apologies I didn't ask for but deeply appreciated. She visits once a week now. Just her. No Tyler talk. Just love. As for me, I'm still healing. I've got stretch marks, a C-section scar, and I'm about 15 pounds heavier than I used to be. But I've never felt more comfortable in my body. It created life. It carried me through battle. And every morning when I catch my reflection holding Lily, I see a woman I'm finally proud of. Money's tight, sure. I clip coupons. I meal prep. But I also opened a savings account in Lily's name. Every payday, no matter how small, I put something in it. Not just for her future, for mine too. A little reminder that we're always moving forward. Sometimes I still think about that moment in the kitchen. The bags of groceries, the sweat on my brow, the sting of his words. It used to feel like the worst day of my life. Now I see it as the day I woke up. I don't know what the future holds, but I know one thing with absolute certainty. My daughter will never grow up thinking love looks like cruelty, not on my watch.